Tisha, do you want to start?
So we have a person that is very close to my heart culturally. Karla Fernandes, digital product designer, consultant, and mentor based in Switzerland. Karla, I've got some notes, but I think it would be best to hear about you with your own words and voice.
So, yes, my name is Karla Fernandes. I am a digital product designer. I have been working with design for almost 30 years. I had a huge career. So I started as a graphic designer, became a front-end and back-end developer. Afterwards, I started mentoring people that want to become designers. And I end up now in this world of no-code and built more than a dozen apps, almost 20 now, using no-code tools.
No one would believe that you have so many years of experience. I don't know if you feel that way, Magda.
Karla, when you sent us the bio and I read it, I was like, seriously, she has 25 years of experience. You don't look like it. Or maybe you started when you were 5. I don't know.
I was 15 when I started, and it was a great time to start too, because web was not so developed at that moment, and they starting with graphic design. Then I did the perfect migration from graphics to web design.
This is interesting. So what made you, get into this design world when you were 15?
Oh, that's a fun story. Maybe I should cut off some parts of it, but to make a long story short, I was 15. I told my dad I wanted to go to the main square in my town. It was a little town in Brazil. And he told me that I actually needed money to get some juice. And I said, no, I'm not having any juice there. And he said, no, you actually need to have some money. Even if you are not going to consume this juice, you have to have the money. If not, you are not going to this place. And then I'm like, okay. So next day I was really looking for a job. Like, I am 15, I am doing my, studies. We're still in school. And then I went to school. I met one of the people that were in my class, and I told her about this, and she told me I actually work in a print graphics, right? They are looking for someone that work with a computer, and seems you have been doing some courses there. And then I went. So once I arrived there, they wanted someone that knew how to use CorelDRAW and Adobe PageMaker, which doesn't exist anymore. And I was very good at CorelDRAW, but never opened Adobe PageMaker. I stayed there for a week, did a little apprenticeship in a week, and they decided to stay with me. So I was creating magazines and newspapers at age 15. And after that, I could go to the main square with my first salary, and my dad was really like, oh, you should not go. And then I'm like, but now I have the money, so there is nothing else that you said that I needed for it, and I end up going.
That's a really amusing story and amazing. You experienced a giant leap from the first CorelDRAWs and manual labor to no code. And we know the transitions, and new generations of developers won't have the chance to learn it the hard way. So what drove you to the no-code solutions? And maybe explain to our listeners what is no-code, because I know that there is the code somewhere hidden behind the makeup, but how does it work?
Yeah, sure. So as designers, we use no-code every day. Right? Like Figma, it's a no-code tool. Adobe Photoshop is also a no-code tool. And if you think the way we have been building websites for a while already, like with WordPress editor and other kinds of plugins, they are all no-code as well. So no-code is any product that is able to deliver something to you without you having the need to understand how to code or write any line of code.
I am totally not a designer, not a developer. So I'm from, a totally different world. So when I started reading about no code before our very first conversation, I was like, okay, so what this is really about. I found quite a lot of articles and blog posts and basically a lot of information about how no code can be inclusive. Now, could you say a few words about it, like how it can be, and also from your experience, if it can really be inclusive?
Sure, like when I think about the concept of inclusivity, what I believe is that more people can actually help in the project. So you don't need people with certain knowledge to do certain tasks. Like as designers, we go throughout the whole designing thinking process and we talk directly with users. We learn their experience with the problem. We see where they want to go. And as team, many times we give these tasks to specific people. So, okay, designers do this, developers do that, people in data do analyze the data, they come later on. And we have all these teams working in the same project, but most of the time really separated from each other. In a no-code project, these can be very different. So the data person can actually help with actual data, like including things on database, helping with other tasks, and because it's not necessary that they have any knowledge of what has been built there. So inclusivity for me, it's a little bit like that. And I believe no code really brings it to the space because more people in your team without the ability to code can help with the project and can be reliable on doing the marketing or adding content or creating images for it. And it doesn't need necessarily to be a work of one or just of the design team anymore.
Perfect. And can you also say, because like I found some interesting numbers actually when I was doing some research. And some of those sources were saying that we're going through a no-code revolution. So, for example, according to Gartner, 70% of new applications developed by companies will use low-code or no-code technologies by 2025. So that's pretty soon. That's already next year, compared to less than 25% that we had in 2020. And also, according to Mendix, 70% of users of low-code platforms who had no experience before using them learn how to low-code or no-code in 1 month or less. I could agree that this calls for a revolution, but do you see that also with your clients as well?
I think it is really powerful, right? Like we are in this age where we got the power to build things and build them fast. And no code brings this so easily to the team, right? Like you don't need to spend 2 years on something like a total secret with maybe 4 or 5 people in a team to decide later on to launch and nobody in crickets. Right? Nobody saw it. Nobody actually wanted that. This was a problem nobody had before, or no problem that someone wanted to pay for. So if we are building products faster, we can fail faster. And that's why I believe okay, today we are building 1 in 4 projects with no code. And so many of those other 3 have failed and could have used no code too. So it is a revolution in a way that we need to change mindset of what is good, because I understand that the web changed a lot from web 0 to today. Like how many of us didn't have really internet that was good enough on our phones not so long ago? So, this has been incremental. And a lot of applications that would not run on our phones before, right now, they run very easily with 3G, not even on the Wi-Fi or 5G. So I believe that is the revolution that we are talking about, is that we don't need to be so careful anymore about the code that goes or how things were built. We just need them to work, at first at least. I'm not advocating here that you don't need developers forever. I am just saying that you can start with no code, see if what you build is actually in fact helpful and that people want it, and afterwards put this team behind you and kind of do work on both at the same time until you get your developed idea in a shape that you can switch and the users won't even know.
And how do your customers, your teams feel about the no code and working with this and coping with a temporary nature of this first prototype? Because my concerns with no code prototype and with prototypes basically is that people fall in love with their prototypes and they assume that if something works, it works. It doesn't require any code refactor, no further measures can be developed as is. And I'm saying this based on my experience from my software house, basically from Makimo, and I recently loved that we are a rescue team for such prototypes. How do you feel? What are your experiences with those transitions and the maintenance of those products?
There are several ways to build with no code today, right? You can build no code apps, like native apps that go to the App Store and Google Play Store, like I built 19 already. You can also build web apps that look a little bit more like websites, right? But they are apps. Why? Because they have applications behind it, like you would say Airbnb, Booking, or many other products. So there are two ways to see things here. If you are doing things on Figma and you got into your prototype, afterwards you do a handoff for your developers and they deal with the rest. So if you do that with no code, you may have a no code team to build that too, or you may just take over. As designers, you can do that right now. I'm really focusing at the moment on education. So I do have 4 customers which I build apps for, but my main goal is really to educate other designers that want to build their own products or also stand out in the crowd. So you just finished a bootcamp, you have maybe very good UX skills, you are not so good at UI yet, but I do believe that the next level designer or the concept of full stack designer right now, you include no code very soon. And you will be able to launch the first idea, the first project for the small startup you work for, or for the small customer you have, or being a freelancer. So when I go from design to prototype and then in prototype going to a real product, of course, you can encounter several problems. For example, you can have some constraints from no code. Maybe it's not really feasible the way you thought it would be. So you have to work around it. You have to be more creative with what kind of flow you want your user to go with. And with founders, I do this mentorship where I go with them from idea to end product. And when they talk about the idea, we go through the process of doing some wireframes, doing mock-up, and then getting to the prototype and testing. And once the prototype is ready, it's tested and is actually feasible to do with the tools that is available right now, then we go to development. And not really the opposite, right? So you have things on your way that can get you stuck, but you need to find different directions to go with it to make it feasible.
That's a good one. You actually made me so both of you, because I think Tisha also came from this point of view that your developers sit down and kind of fix the things that haven't been made greatly before.
Yeah, nicely put.
But I noticed something like a similar trend in my role as a Scrum Master or Agile coach. Now we have a lot of people who get into this role. It's also open to everyone, like no code, let's say, right? You can go to a boot camp, you can do a 2 days course, and then you can become a Scrum Master. And now we have this issue on the market that you actually have so many people, but with so low skills, that they actually really do a lot for like this bad reputation for agile. And so I wonder if it can be the same with no code as well, because it's also open. It also sounds like you can get pretty easily into it.
You've got the effects.
But what about the quality then? Yeah.
I tell you, when was the last time you got an app that didn't work? One that was coded. I'm sure you got many of those. So, like the quality doesn't come from if it is coded or no coded. It's really from the team, right? Of course, App Store has a really high standard for when you apply to have an app on the App Store. And you receive not one, not two, maybe 10 emails for you to fix things that you didn't think about. Right? If you do that. And I have gone through those with founders that they didn't think of this problem or didn't correct that one interaction. And these developers also go through, but it's still, you can tell me for sure, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe even more apps that you downloaded to your phone and you have to delete it because it didn't do what you wanted.
That's true.
I believe that's Magda, as well as I, got the same concerns regarding jobs and the separation maybe of no-code specialist and code specialist. That it's very easy in the IT world to apply for a post for a job as a Scrum Master or a front-end developer, show some rapid effects, speak some lingo, and get a job, and be an imposter, earn some money, get an entry in your CV, and then move on and just say the same bollocks to other employers and just coast through your life and your career. And that's a challenge internally for the market to, I don't know, regulate, maybe define those things. It's still very dynamic and very fluid, I believe.
Companies create jobs in different ways, and there are a bunch of positions for UX designers that actually ask you to code JavaScript, HTML, CSS today already. And some of them call the now front-end engineers UX engineers, which they are not really thinking about usability. So the job market can be totally different, like every year, every month. One day, front-end development was HTML, CSS, and now it's HTML, CSS, and some framework. It's React, it's Vue, it's something else. And that was exactly when I decided, okay, this is not for me anymore, because I cannot keep up design and code anymore. I cannot keep both worlds. So I do believe the market, you always ask what they want from everyone. And if they don't find that right person, they go down and get the person that is next to it. So yes, there are cons and pros for all of those positions, but I don't believe this is something that you actually dictate how people are hired or not. It's just that it's a skill that you maybe be standing out from the crowd or not.
Yeah. On the other hand, when you look at the stats, like only 0.5% of the world's population know how to code. So it's, I'd say, very little, right? And I think I like this idea of no code, that it invites people who are not only white young men coding, sitting there in notes and then coding somewhere in the basement of their parents in Silicon Valley, but it's open to everyone, to like different experiences. And I think this is what we're looking for when it comes to using apps and websites, right? So I'd say I like this trend for sure.
I have most experience with Indian developers and Indian job market, not only white, Silicon Valley, Chad, that is coding.
I also work with many Indian developers and engineers. But again, it's mostly men, right?
They don't have the best reputation, let's put it that way.
That too. But also, if you think about it, So, Karla, in one of our previous episodes, we talked about, for example, smart yoga mats, and we were thinking, who the hell designed it? And we were kind of discussing and laughing with a yoga teacher, and so it could be one of the examples, as you're saying, someone. Oh, and now we know who designed it. I mean, it was only men, but that's the case. Maybe if they invited a female designer, this smart yoga mat would turn into something better than it is now.
On the other hand, maybe the UI was just assembled roughly. I don't know. We haven't been sent this smart yoga mat for testing. So please send us one.
But Carla, do you see that in this no-code world now? Do you see we have more women of color? Do you see this diversity more than a few years ago?
I would say that women really try to be out there in all these positions, and we are still minority in most of them, for sure. But it seems that we are less interested too. A lot of women designers are really just interested in doing design. They are not really interested in learning something new. Like, I have been actually struggling with the education part. I have 4,200 something students that did one of my courses. And I could take a look, but I would guess that not 10% of them are women. So, is that because we are not interested in learning these exactly, or we are interested in other things? I don't know what's the reason. But there are women making, like makers, right? Indie hackers, and a bigger community too around no code. I went to a summit last year in Paris, and I saw a lot of women, but maybe 1 in 4, maybe 1 in 5. But many of them were there just for the marketing purposes, not really building with the tools.
What would you, then I'm just thinking, about like maybe any women who are listening to us and are maybe thinking about going into no code. What would be your advice to start with?
Well, I would say think a little bit about when you started as I like to mention designers because we are halfway through with the process, right? We are already building something, either websites or apps. We are building applications all the time. So if you did a boot camp for design, you have done that. You have going throughout the whole design thinking process, which I think it's crucial for any product. So if you know that, you're already 60% ahead of most of the people, right? So because you know already how to validate your idea, how to think if it's good enough, if the flows work or so on. And after that, you just need to choose what kind of tool you are going to use. Is that a website? So maybe you use Bubble, you use Webflow, you use Framer, you use Flutterflow, you use WeWeb, but there are so many. And I have been learning Todo. So Todo is so interesting and has a lot of, easy functionalities. They also have a little course that is free. It's on YouTube. You can learn it in 7 days and you can learn the basics of it. If you are a developer, I tell you, you are already 90% into Todo because it teaches you web development without you knowing that is actually used behind the scenes. And if you go in the other direction where you want to build an app, that was actually why I got into no code, because I could build websites coding it myself. Then you want to see the tools that actually offer that. You can go through Funkable, you can use Good Barber, you can use, there are several too, but the one I use today mainly, it's called Bravo Studio. And the biggest thing that made me stick with Bravo Studio on top of others so far, it is that you create your Figma file, and that is the base for your project. So when you update your Figma file, you updated your project live. You don't even need to request a new bundle to send to the App Store or Google Play Store after its release. So it is pretty magical. and you can build a product or an app that goes to the App Store and Google Play in 8 hours, couple of days, or even a couple of weeks. Like if you see the last project I have built that is for designers called UX UI Hub, it's on both platforms. It was built in 80 hours, and it has the element of you signing in, you interacting with others, a bunch of resources for junior designers that don't know what to do next to really improve their career. And it was built with no code. Right now has 1,500 users. So the point there is that this app, this started as a just events app. And then once it hit 1,000, I said like, oh, I invest a little bit more time on it. So I built the first version with maybe 20 hours. And now I expand that to 8 hours and I have a much better product. So you can do that too. You can start with one feature of your product and grow from there.
And from my perspective, when it comes to starting adventure with no code and building your own apps, I'm not that into converting my Figma files into actual app right now. But one day I started playing with Glide to do some pet projects, pet PWAs. One was meant for my best friend to gamify his scientific career. And I actually wanted to design and devise a game with some motivational quotes. Unfortunately, he moved and the whole idea collapsed. But yeah, Glide, where you just drag and drop blocks, set up some simple databases, add images. It's a very nice tool to see how easy and difficult at the same time is to conceptualize a system like this, and how rewarding it is when you finally download it to your device or share with your colleagues. So yeah, and we'll definitely list all the no-code links in the description.
Yeah, since you mentioned Glide, I want to tell a personal story with it. On that no-code summit I told you about in Paris, I went there and they had these kind of little hackathons. And I was with another woman. We were two and there were 6 men. And she is also into Figma. And we had this challenge to build something with Glide. We were giving a briefing and we would be creating something for the whole event where you could actually say that something is wrong. Oh, there is no food here. There is no, the toilet paper finished here. Oh, something went broke here. Oh, there is water in the floor there. So we built something like that, even in 2 phases, like, one for the user, one for administration, in a couple of hours. It was really intense, but really interesting because I never used it before. And in 2 hours, I could build a little product. So you see there how powerful those tools can be.
I'm always impressed to see how quick this can be. I think there was even a study by Red Hat when they claimed that with no code at some point, you will be able to speed up the whole development process by 90%, 90. That's a lot. But it's exactly what you're saying to us. You can just build something in a few hours, basically.
Yes, I don't want you to disconsider that you also have to learn it, right? Like in the learning process, it may be different from each tool that you want to use, like some are easier than others, or have more to be with what you actually do or did in the past that gave you some advantage there. But it's not that you just get any tool and in 2 hours you build something. The first project I built with Bravo Studio, for example, took me like a month to build. And it was a very simple app, but I needed to learn everything from scratch. So I turned that and 4 other apps that I built into this course I told you about exactly because of it. Because I could condense everything I actually learned in these many hours, more than 1,000 hours already, in 3.5 hours for someone to learn and not have the same problems. But you can always learn more about something, right? Like there are new tools and also new things being launched in the tools that you already used all the time. So there is always improvement to be made or a new feature to be added. And just to have that possibility, I think it's a huge progress.
Speaking about progress, where do you see the future of no-code? You already said that it has some limitations right now. There are some boundaries and you can't do everything with this. You need to move within some constraints. But where is the future, in your opinion?
Yeah, you have constraints. But just to be clear, you could build an Instagram using no-code today. And if you think of Instagram as a good product or a product that has many users or so on, of course, maybe you wouldn't have this many users at the same time using the platform and posting at the same time, because this will involve a lot of servers and everything. But you could start. And that is the potential I see. And the future I also envision is that more people can start creating products that they just try. They try it out. They put it out there and check if people really want. And this is not even the future anymore. This is now. It just needs to see if you are the person that actually wants to try it out. Maybe you have ideas that you want to build, then start there. If you have this entrepreneurial thinking, you probably have many ideas and you probably have other skills, so why not try it too? So I just believe that more people should be doing their own products and not just relying on other people's products to solve their problems. So if you have a problem that everyone around you have, why are you not building something yet for that?
That's very true. I mean, I love this approach. It's like go and experiment, think about it, fail fast, learn fast, improve, and then you can go from there.
Oh, sure. Like, if you get questions, I'm always interested. And I'm thinking also of adding very soon to this project an event that will be like how I built the UX UI hub, and then show the behind the scenes and so on for probably people that are already aware of the behinds of scenes, like how simple this is in fact, because I know it's really easy to talk about things, but when you are not seeing how it actually works or what you need to do, it's a little bit more abstract. It's too abstract for people to grasp what is really behind. And yeah, that's it.
Great. Tisha, I don't have any more questions. Do you have any?
I probably would have, but let's not exercise our beloved guest that much right now. So, Karla, querida, you're definitely the one to follow. Where our listeners can follow you?
Yeah, well, they can find me on LinkedIn and also on my website is vitaminak.design.
This is also included in the podcast description, so definitely check her out. And Magda, off to you with the marketing thingies.
Yes, so you can follow up with Karla or you can follow up with us as well. So you can find us on Instagram, Let the Tech Out. You can also find us on LinkedIn, or you can email us on letthetechOut@gmail.com. Feel free to follow up. You can, of course, always contact us directly. Also, Tisha and I use Instagram and we're also on LinkedIn. So do find us to come with some more ideas for any future topics or any future conversations. And of course, the guests were always interested in your suggestions.
Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any podcast tool and engage in our Q&As and polls.
Yes. Thank you both for having me. It was great talking to you.
Thank you so much, Karla, for visiting our podcast. It was so great talking to you.
Always nice to hear from you. So, everyone, have a great day, afternoon, evening, whenever you listen to this episode.
Thank you.
See you in the next one.
Thank you. See you.